What's up, everybody? Welcome to Salah's Corner with the one and only Salah Muhammad. That was a quieter one because I already messed up, so I had to redo it.
Yeah, and I don't want
to.
Rain up. We need you.
So, what's going on? Yeah, how are you today?
I'm all right. I mean, I did my hair yesterday.
Looks good.
Thank you.
Is it locked yet?
No, it's not.
How long you been?
I've been locked for 3 months now.
It still isn't like lock yet. What?
I mean, I washed it and it's not coming out. Some of them are.
Oh yeah, then you're good then. Yeah.
But it still looks like.
It still looks coiled.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it'll look like that for a while.
Someone that I know that does hair, she's a cosmetologist. She wanted to try and do the instant lock method, but I didn't want to. I wanted to do the thing. What
do you, this is about to be a hair tutorial video. What products do you use?
Well, my goal is to not necessarily use any holding products. Once I'm done. Right now I'm using it's called Mono's Hair. She started out as a YouTuber called Mono's Hair.
I ain't never.
And now she has a hair care line. She's like really big now. But I'm using one of her creams. I don't know. But I'm using it because I have it.
Gotcha.
And I don't want to waste it. But then after that, I'm going to just be using oil and water.
What's in it?
Good stuff.
That's a good way of saying I don't know what's in it.
I just know it's great. It works.
Good. That's good. All right. Cool. Yeah. I'm a lock expert now. I should start doing videos.
Do some tutorials.
No, I mean I'm 5 years in.
Yeah,
now.
you 5 years in.
So
you got the small joints though. I can't live that kind of life.
It takes so long to do my hair.
Yeah, that's why I'm not.
So long.
This took me 2.5 hours to do.
It takes me easily like 5 hours to do.
No way in the world.
I don't do it myself. I go to Bree was doing it for a while, for years actually. I just recently started going back to a salon.
No, I'm not.
It's so bad.
I'm not doing it.
I like it. I like the smaller ones because it just I don't know. It just
I didn't want that much locks.
Yeah.
I already have extremely thick hair, and so I did not want to deal with that. I had I think I've mentioned this before. I had faux locks, and I liked the size that they were, and so that's kind of what I'm trying to go for now.
See, I feel like that looks better on women. The smaller, just thicker locks in general. Okay. I don't think it looks good on men.
Oh, okay.
I like smaller locks, like just look better for men, for me. Like whatever.
I mean, that's interesting. I don't really care.
Anyway, what else is going on? Any new updates?
No. Just living life.
Just living the locked life.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. That's what's up.
What about you? What you got going on?
So much as usual. I'm actually in a period where I'm starting to slow down a little bit before I ramp back up in like the next week. But just planning some activities around just hoping folks get out to vote in the upcoming May primary or May 18th. So look out for that. If you follow me on IG, there's some activities I'm looking to plan. Some people I'm looking to recruit to host events and things like that. Just like I'm trying to plan a trip. To somewhere exotic. I know COVID is still a thing, but I need a vacay real bad.
Listen,
I'm about to lose it.
Listen.
So I'm hoping actually I'd like to plan it by the summer, but like also get the vaccine by then.
Yeah, I definitely want to. I'm definitely signing up to get the vaccine. Yeah. I know people who are like still talking about how they're not getting it, all this, but I don't care. I'm getting it.
I signed up to get it, so I'm on like the city's list.
I haven't signed up yet, but I need to.
I'm not even close to like the top.
Technically, I can get it because I'm technically in a high risk category. Yeah, because I'm over 35, and technically I'm obese.
Yeah, obese, but over 35.
I know I'm not, but yeah, but is over 35 with that stipulation.
Gotcha. Yeah,
I know I'm not obese, but according to
doctors.
The white man's medicine,
yeah.
I'm obese. And so technically I can get it. I was thinking about that the other day. I'm not even, just for the people to know, I'm not even 200 pounds.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's
it's just weird. Dumb.
Yeah. They are really like ramping up like the vaccine distribution.
And it's going to be available to everyone in May anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, what else I got? That's probably all I got going on. Anybody got some connects on a destination vacation? Holla at me, because I'm trying to hit up like Jamaica. That's
I'm
what I'm
about to say,
talking
don't
about.
go to Miami.
I'm not going to fucking Miami. I'm trying to go to Jamaica, actually.
You're gonna get bum rushed by the popos down there.
Yeah, I ain't about that
It's
life.
real down there.
It's been wild. You seen all the videos?
It's wild down there right now.
They turning the hell up in Jamaica, man.
Wild.
Anyway, politics meets pop culture. Do we have anything this week? Anything exciting happening?
But I can't remember for the life of me.
I don't really. I ain't been paying attention to anything that's been happening out there.
It was
lately.
one thing that happened, but then I forgot it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to remember that. And I don't remember what it is. Yeah. It wasn't that important, I don't think.
It's, I really, lately I've been turning off like the TV.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm sitting at work now at home, I'm like not even, like the TV is off. I'm on meetings, I'm preparing, whatever. So we can go ahead and move on. Let's talk about local. What's happening locally?
Former attorney Carlos Vega, he used to work for the district attorney's office, is running to be the DA against Larry Krasner on the Democratic side. So when that happened, they're touting him as a Spanish-speaking FOP-backed homicide prosecutor.
They work in that.
They work in that heavy.
They work in that demographic.
They work in that heavy.
Man.
But yeah, he's running. He was one of the attorneys that was actually fired by Larry Krasner when he first got in. He's saying that that's not a reason why he's running, as like a revenge thing. He really thinks that Krasner is the reason for crime going up in the city, and he wants to run against him because of that. But he's trash because he believes in the death penalty. So
He does. And full disclosure, I'm working on a campaign that's supporting Krasner, but this has no involvement with that at all. But
I'm not working on anything, and he's just trash. I'll volunteer for stuff, but I just wanted to put that out there, full disclosure.
I think that the interesting thing that's taking place with this, and this is why I think I said this on our last episode, or maybe in private conversations, I can't remember, but I say that the city isn't really ready for. The city talks largely about being progressive on criminal justice reform and changing our systems, but isn't really ready for it because you got this guy who's running for district attorney, who's basically running on a tough on crime platform without actually saying tough on crime. Yeah. So, and then the other thing is, I did a simple, just Google search, not scientific at all, but a simple search of just the district attorney's race in Philadelphia.
Scientific.
Not at all, I'm shocked. But a simple search, just what are folks saying about this race? And the large number of articles that were out there were heavily criticizing Krasner, directly relating the rise on crime to how he's pursuing prosecution. Mm-hmm. And it's just a false equivalency. Yeah. It ignores that the rise on crime is, one, related to the pandemic, two, related to the social problems of the city and the poverty problem in the city. Yeah. And so, but the media narrative and now this other candidate, Carlos Vega, is using that as a means of the crime is going up because he's not prosecuting people well, and they're basically ending up right back on the street committing more crime. And it's just what? And it's so the cops, the FOP has supported this candidate. I think the firefighters union has supported this candidate. A couple other unions that you think would support this type of candidate are supporting it. And interestingly enough, I found that I was talking to a few folks. Again, this also is not necessarily backed up by any evidence or anything, but I heard that there's a large number of Republican groups in the city that are switching their party status to Democrat to vote for this candidate as well, to mess up the Democratic primary so that they can get this candidate that they want to move forward. Because they don't think that a Republican will be able to win, but a Democrat with going for the same things that he wants could possibly win in a city like Philadelphia. Yeah,
that's wild. Pay attention, people. That's all I can say.
Yeah, my thing for local is, so there is a teacher who is under fire in the Philadelphia School District for basically telling students to, reenact enslaved people. Philly teacher under scrutiny after giving an assignment asking students to imagine they were enslaved people. This is a story run out by the Inquirer. I posted it over the weekend on my stories on IG, but it's just like, it's wild. So it was a creative writing assignment given to Lincoln High School students in an African American history class during Black History Month, of all month, during Black History Month. Directed them to imagine they were enslaved in one of the southern slave states, particularly one of the states within the Cotton Kingdom between 1820 and 1850. It said they should write an essay explaining how they felt about potentially being sold, and asked them to make an argument, plea, etc., to that individual to attempt to get them to reconsider their position or offer an alternative arrangement. So you couldn't think of any other creative writing assignment than to imagine yourself as a slave and plea for your freedom?
So force the victim to advocate for themselves against violence.
Wild shit. And
that's fucking insane.
And this is why our Whackas of the week that last time was this superintendent.
That's fucking nuts. That's fucking nuts.
Yeah, it ain't really nothing else to recap about.
It's not. It's nothing to say.
Y'all gotta be wild for like, you should be fired, and that might be something I might work on in the future.
Let's do that.
You need to be fired. All right, we're gonna go into our main topic in a moment after we take a short break. Here at Salah's Corner, I am always looking to connect with new people, hear new perspectives, and share new stories. And right now, I want to hear from you. Email me at realtalk@salahscorner.com, and we can get your story featured on our next episode. I haven't really figured out a name for our main topic, but we're back. We are here with Sarah Hansel.
Hi.
Why don't you introduce yourself to the good folks?
Sure. So my name is Sarah Hansel. I am the president of the Philadelphia Young Democrats, and I also serve as a judge of elections in Ward 5, Division 15. And by day, I am a trial attorney.
You got a lot of hats.
Yeah, you have a lot going on. I appreciate that, though.
Thank you. Thanks. It definitely feels like that. Some days more than others, but yeah, today's one of those days. I got a lot going on. Lots of deadlines in court and organizing different events for PYD. So, yeah.
Very, very, very nice. You talked about you do a number of different things. Judge of elections. You talked about some court activities that you have, and President Young Democrats. Let's first dive into who is Sarah. So where do you where do you get your politics from? Let's talk about like how you've come to the moment that you are, from whether it be education or upbringing.
Cool. Yeah, that's so deep. But I have been thinking a lot lately actually about how sort of my politics and my passion for pursuit of justice in the courtroom and then, progressive causes outside of my work has sort of evolved. And I can actually pinpoint a moment. Yeah.
Let's hear it.
So I was 11 years old, and I'm originally from West Virginia. So I'm born and raised in West Virginia, which, as you can imagine, is a rather conservative.
Very, very conservative.
So it's certainly more conservative now than it was then, but even back then it was very conservative. So I was also a big nerd, and I participated when I was 11 in our statewide youth and government conference. And as part of that participation, you were able to talk to representatives from, your state, from West Virginia. And there was a dinner one night that we had, and it was a bunch of us, so 11-year-old kids from around the state at the table with a representative, a state rep. And he asked the entire table, so what does everyone think about gay marriage? And this was in 1997.
How old were you?
11.
11.
Wow.
11. So he made us go around the table and say what we thought. I happened to be either the last or the second to the last, and everyone was like, "Oh, I don't agree with it. It's the Bible. All this bullshit." And then and then he gets me, and I said, I don't really understand. Like, I really don't understand the problem. If people love each other, I don't see why anybody would be against that. And he said, but what about the Bible? And what about the teachings of the Bible? And I was like, but what about the separation of church and state? Right?
That part.
Right? And I mean, he ended the conversation very quickly. I think.
But the fact that you, a child, had to say that to an adult is mind-blowing to me.
It was crazy. And you know what his response was? He said, who are your parents? Like, that was when it really hit me that, I mean, I knew there was discrimination. I knew there were, you know, injustices in the world, but it hadn't hit me until that moment that, like, politicians and people that should be in charge of, like, making the world a better place and making the world equal and better for all of us might actually not be doing that.
And so from that moment, where did that take you? You know, let's go forward in time as from that moment on. From there, like, did you, as you started to progress through school, did you know that was the path that you wanted to take? You know, your background is in legal. You know, where did that trajectory go forward?
Yeah, sure. So I did not know that I would get into sort of politics and activism and the legal field. I originally wanted to be an actress. But part of that was because I felt like through the arts I could help people. And I felt like I could, so much of like things that I went through as a child, I was able to put into art. I would sing and dance and act, and I was able to sort of channel that energy, and it helped me work through a lot of my personal baggage. And I wanted to do that for someone else. So it was always sort of about I knew what I wanted to do was help people. Like, I knew that. So I actually moved to New York City, went to drama school, graduated, did some like off Broadway stuff. But I was always interested in, at that point, it was, again, the LGBT rights movement, marriage equality, and I started doing like grassroots organizing in Brooklyn around that issue, helped with the March on Washington, D.C., and it was just always sort of like, I feel like I can be doing more. And I finally decided, like, look, I gotta contribute somehow, some way to like make change, actual change. Like, when I die, I want to have said, like, I helped to make this world a better place. And I just wasn't, I wasn't doing that through theater, and I knew that I needed to take another path. So I went to law school, and still throughout like my law school career was doing a lot of activism. I was in New York at the time. Occupy Wall Street was huge, and I would go on breaks between classes down to Occupy so I could legal observe, which means you serve sort of on behalf of the protesters watching the police. And if there are like arrests or any interactions between the police and the protesters, you're there to sort of bear witness and take down information. And if there's anything, if there's any misconduct on the part of the police, you can serve as a witness for the protester.
It's interesting. A lot of folks have moved to that form of activism just this past summer, with the number of protests that was kicking off, especially in Philly. Because, I was personally at a ton of protests over the summer. And as far as allies or accomplices, I like to say accomplices, like those, that's how so many were directing their energy towards, like, well, how can you be a supporter to Black people protesting, right? Like, not being out there being on the front lines, but being more of a supporter and watching the protests, making sure that you're identifying bad actors. What was that experience like? I'm curious.
I loved it. I still do it when I can today. And I think your point is so, it hits on something, right? It's like, you can't have the people who are, like, for too long, I'll just say it, for too long, like, Black and brown people have been advocating, and other groups too, LGBT people, have been like the ones out there, like, with their bodies, literally their bodies, interacting with the police, trying to fight, trying to advocate for their rights, and literally being accosted. So, yeah, if I can stand, like, I'm a white woman, if I can stand in between that gap for someone, it's an honor, right? It's a privilege. Like, I love it. I don't know. I feel a great sense of like I am protecting this sort of democratic movement, and it's a wonderful experience.
That's dope. I love that actually, because I get, and after the summer of this past summer of 2020, so many folks jump into my DMs. Like, mind you, these are some of the same folks that, because I've been this platform has existed in some form or another since about 2015, that largely ignored me leading up to the summer of 2020. But the second, we become politically activated through trauma, which seems to be like a recurring theme that I constantly have with folks that I invite to the podcast. The first ones to jump into my DMs, like, well, what can I do? How can I help? Like, what types of action I can take?
I feel like that's the majority of, especially Black and brown people. That's how they get introduced to the political process, is through the trauma that they've experienced from the system. And so their way is to figure out a way to remedy that trauma from, or mitigate it from happening to someone, or, happening to less people, and then further, stopping it. But I feel like that's most Black and brown people's introduction into politics and activism.
Yeah.
That's so true. That is very true. And I wonder if, I guess this is like not a question that I thought about posing to you, but as we're talking about this, like, not saying that you can speak for all white people or some shit like that, but like, I just wonder what that, just from, your circle of folks that you come across and engage with, what, like, can you speak to how that political activation or like how they come to, because I imagine, I know I personally know a lot of white people that get politically activated because they were grandfathered in. Right? Like they have friends and family who served as political leaders, or because they got pushed into a political direction from their parents and things like that. Whereas like Black people, I think we have that as well from a activism standpoint, right?
Definitely our family.
Of a resistance, definitely our family. But more from a resistance standpoint. And then so many new folks, especially young people, which is going to take us into this, you feel young Democrats, are introduced because of the trauma they experience. Can you just your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. And again, like, I guess from not speaking for all white people, but from I guess the white young people that I know that are involved in our organization, I think a lot of people come to it through, well, first of all, I do agree with you that a lot of people are grandfathered in, but setting aside those people, through witnessing the trauma on others, right? Which is, I mean, it is also in a way how I came to it. I mean, I did experience a lot growing up in West Virginia. I did see people mistreated, and it's just, I'm not gonna explain. I mean, everybody knows, but I do think that that's part of the impetus for young white people to get involved. Is I see something that's wrong, I want to stop it, and I want to be part of the solution. I want to try to make it better.
So now you're the president of Philly Young Democrats. How you went to law school? When did you become president? And like, what was that? Where was that connection thread there?
Between
law school and then like president of Philly Young Democrats.
Sure. So when I was in law school, again in New York, I got involved in a progressive democratic organization in Brooklyn. Sort of the goal of the organization is to push the party sort of further to the left and into more progressive issues. So that's why I became involved in more. I was involved in activism before around certain like social issues, like I said, marriage equality, but that was really how I got involved in like politics and, talking to political officials and things like that. And going out to try to get people on the ballot, right? So like door knocking and canvassing, all that stuff. So I did that throughout college or throughout law school. And I always knew that as a lawyer, I wanted to represent people. I wanted to represent individuals against corporations. And as part of that sort of work, as I've been doing it for the last several years of my life, I realized how important it is. Like the other end of that bargain is like how these laws are being made, right? So I'm fighting. I mean, I'm literally in court I'll give you an example. So I represent, not just me, but my law firm and a bunch of other law firms that we work with represent people who live in Flint. Their water was contaminated with lead and other harmful substances. And as a result, the children of Flint are going to have neurodevelopmental issues because that's just the amount of lead that they ingested. And a great remedy for them would be to have them monitored basically for the rest of their lives. Like paying for those children to be able to, make sure that they're seeing the right doctors, make sure that they're getting educational interventions that they might need to help them through school, to help them succeed, make sure that they're getting nutritional services to help try to get that lead out of their body. All of these things. In Michigan, that is not, some argue that is not an available form of a remedy. So it's not available to those children. Now, our law firm is arguing against that, right? And we think it is. But the fact of the matter is, there were lawmakers in Michigan who decided that this shouldn't be a remedy. And they wrote a bill that, made it very, very, very difficult, I'll say that, to obtain this form of relief. So, just how I'm fighting in court, and and yet the legislatures are holding us back. So, long-winded way of saying, that's when I realized I have to, not just that case, but for years now, realized I had to get involved in politics and try to, change the laws too.
And so when did you take on this case?
Flint. So I joined the firm that I'm with now. It started it in 2014. The water switch happened in April of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And
did they take up the case back then?
Yeah.
That's amazing because
wow.
Because I remember the coverage for Flint back then, and this was, I've always paid very close attention to kind of politics, and I remember I was watching Rachel Maddow, and she was one of the first on a national level to really cover what was taking place before it was even, people found out they had legionnaires as a result from the switch. She covered even back in 2012 when the emergency managers stepped in and basically just dictatorship control over black cities, not just Flint, but some other cities. And so to hear that the law firm was really on the ground back then, when a lot of folks didn't really start paying attention to this until 15, 16, really, and even later after really, afterwards. So yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's just about believing people, right? That's true. It did not get really national media attention for some time afterwards, but there were activists. I mean, there were people there every single day, saying with bottles of water that are brown, and there were studies being done by the local pediatrician, Dr. Monahan-Atisha, who revealed that there were increases in lead levels in children. I mean, it was all there. It's just they weren't being believed.
And then so you. The firm starts working on this in 2014. You come on in what year?
Yeah, I joined the firm in 2016.
2016.
Yeah, so a couple years after.
And
ever since.
and been there ever since, and as you're working on this, you realize that you need to be a lot more active in politics, promoting other folks to be civically engaged. When does that bring you then to Philly Young Democrats?
Yeah, so I joined Philly Young Dems. We rechartered in 2016. So it was around the same time. And yeah, I joined a couple months after they rechartered. And at that point was just a member looking to get more involved. They were rewriting their bylaws. And so I, again, because I'm a super big nerd, volunteered to do that. So I wrote the bylaws for the organization. And then, yeah, from there just got sort of more and more involved. I was very lucky. I felt like everyone in leadership at the time really encouraged me to become more active. I think part of the problem with politics, and in particular politics in Philly, you can feel like an outsider very easily.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard sometimes to break through that wall, especially if you're someone who's not from here,
We've been, this is like a running theme that has come up in every episode for the last few weeks now, I feel like.
Yeah.
where it's because I'm getting my bachelor's in political science. I just moved back up here from Georgia, and I was talking about how I haven't even bothered with trying to find anything here because it's so hard to get in.
Yeah, it is. And that's part of, why I wanted to become involved in the leadership in Philly Young Dems, because I see our organization as a tool that can help sort of bridge the divide between, maybe people who are moving into the city and just trying to navigate, our political system here, or, activists who want to make change, but who aren't quite connected or want to connect, right, with other people. And to try, and we have, we have one foot in that and then one foot with the party, right? And so we can help be a conduit. Yeah.
Ooh, you just
that
put the question.
Up
you just
bring it.
you talk about having one foot with the party,
mm-hmm.
but then one foot with obviously it's Philly Young Democrats, so you're trying to get more young people and bring them in. What's that relationship like, and what's that relationship like with managing the expectations of the party and also the org? Is it an org? Is it like C3, C4, or is it what? How are you organized? I guess I should ask that.
I guess. So we are chartered under the Pennsylvania Young Democrats.
Gotcha.
Which I believe is a PAC.
Yeah, I would. That's what I as I said that I realized it was probably under a PAC. Okay.
Yeah.
So as you organize, trying to bring more young people in, but then also trying to stay true to the party and understanding that the mentality of young people is fuck the party.
It butts
for real.
heads.
Let's be real.
They go at odds a lot.
Yeah.
So what's that?
How do you manage the expectations?
Yeah, of both sides, really.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, I think it's interesting because I think one way to look at it is attention, right? Or butting of heads. I like to think of it as a compliment, which is probably too optimistic. But I mean, here's the deal, right? The party in Philadelphia, I mean, we need young blood.
Yeah.
There are the majority of committee people, board leaders, of elected officials in the city skews it towards the older, right? I think most committee people and board people most of them are
retirement age.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Right. And there's a recognition, and I think we have a good working relationship with the party on this point, but they need, young blood. They need people, the next generation, to come in and take these positions and move the party forward. And so to that, I think it's almost I think it doesn't seem that way sometimes, but there is that welcoming because it's a necessity. I mean, what else are we going to do? I mean, I think as far as this sort of activism, managing members' expectations, or sort of how do we, I guess the real question is how are we pushing the party in a progressive direction, right? And I think the answer to that is we have to keep the dialogue open with the party, which is what I try to do with our organization. We have events where we invite, elected officials to speak, and we talk to them about, the issues that we care about, and they are asked hard questions, and, they give answers, right? And I think that it's through sort of that dialogue that helps sort of to bridge that gap, and then also supporting young people who want to run. I mean, that's another huge part of our organization is we want to give young people who are interested in running for office the tools to do that. So we've had, for example, this year we've had, I think, two different meetings centered around how to run for office. Those two were centered around how to run for election board positions, judge of elections, basically. But we had speakers come in that would just tell you how to do it, the nuts and bolts. And so, that way we're getting these young progressive people in the party, right? And they're changing the party through politics.
So, you're engaging young people, it sounds like through trainings. right? Which is I think is a huge benefit to be able to like give them something tangible that they're learning as they're coming out of this. What are some other ways that Philly Young Democrats are engaging with young people? I'll ask my second question after that.
Sure. So we've been providing trainings for how to run for office. We also have been conducting, like before the election in 2020, we did a lot of get out the vote efforts, which was very popular, as you might imagine, amongst young people. We had a lot of volunteers. So, and it was all sort of COVID compliant, just dropping literature off at people's doors. And also voter registration efforts, which were, again, like, and what we would do is we would go to, like, the protests, for example, and you just have people with a clipboard registering voters. And there was a huge amount of engagement from our membership with doing that, and also with the get out the vote. And then after the election, we would go back to the communities that we canvassed, and we do a day, like a cleanup day. And just like give back to the community, try to like there's a lot of campaign literature that just gets left up and it turns into trash.
Yeah.
And it's sad. So, we're trying our best to like do that as well. And yeah, I mean, I think that those efforts to I guess really give young people a chance to get involved in the process. I mean, if you give young people that chance, they'll take it.
Yeah.
What I agree. If you give young people the chance, they'll take it. But then also the second they take the first chance, they're like, I won't say hooked for life, but like it's more likely that they're hooked for life. The chances of them being repeat users of the political system are so high when they take their first action, regardless of like, the election, well, especially bigger elections like presidential and like the Senate and things like that. Do you engage it sounds like you have a membership based kind of engagement. Do you engage your members, your young members on the, like, what is, the dissuading thing that's keeping them from being engaged? Because I'm just curious as to like what are some like young what are their thinking and feelings about like just young civic engagement in the city, and like unique ways to kind of motivate them outside of the like, because we the one thing that we see and we saw heavily in this past election, and I'm a part of different groups that have done this, is like you see a huge focus during presidential elections, and then once we get to off-year elections like this year, the engagement needs to be different than like lit drops and GOTV, get out the vote activities. Sorry, start talking in the acronyms.
No, I think people know the lingo at this point.
I don't think the average person understands what GOTV is. That's no.
Well, now you know.
They do not. That's not like a shade to anyone. That's just like I name that because I think that is also how like young people start to feel excluded from the process, is because we assume they know the jargon and lingo, and like so like I guess the question really goes back to that. It's like, what are young people saying that's keeping them out of the process? And then like during those off-year periods, like you mentioned, like going back out to those communities and doing things like engagement. Like what are some other ways that you would like to see, not just Philly Young Democrats, but just as a whole, how we engage with young people?
Yeah, sure. So it is a wave, right? Like it feels like every 4 years there's a big push, and then after that it dies down. And I think part of that is what we talked about earlier, where people feel, I mean, look, in advance of a presidential election, you are getting, I don't know about you or anyone of your listeners, but like you're getting a lot of, how can you help? There's emails, there's, things on TV, you're on social media. I mean, there's a lot of outreach to try to get people out there, which is great, but then that dies down, and, that's how you lose people. So with Philly Young Dems, we try to just keep, that engagement. I mean, we try to just, I have a list of our, top volunteers. I try to email them every month, try to give, some sort of engagement that we can do. I think that's effective. But I don't know. I think I think there's also, I mean, look, people are busy, right? Like, we're young people, we're out there trying to, like, make a living. We have, like, college debt. I mean, we have lives. Some of us are starting to, like, people are having kids. Like, you're living your life, and it's hard to dedicate energy to say, okay, I'm going to go out for this, campaign that I really don't understand much about. Like, it's a local campaign, I really don't get it. You can activate people for the presidential election, but it's harder when you're talking about things like judges or, city council, because people don't really have an understanding, like, well, what is this going to do for me? Which is actually, it's ironic, right? Because those are the people that are probably going to impact you and your daily life so much more than who's in the White House. So I think it's just about, from all I can say I can do, and we can try to do as Philly Young Dems, is just get that message out. Try to talk about how important these local elections are and why you should care, and then keep building and building, right? Keep volunteers. People, like you said, once you do it, you kind of get hooked because it feels so good, right? You really feel like you're giving
especially
back.
when you vote for someone that wins.
Yes!
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, it's the best feeling, right? And yeah, so then hopefully they share that with their friends, and it's organic.
You mentioned judges and things like that. So obviously Philly is in an election. Well, so for folks who don't know, Philly is always in an election year. Every 6 months we vote. If the folks don't know, remember now, we are always voting, so we should always be talking about voting. I think of the system, right? Let's think larger now. We talked about earlier the traumas that come into, right, like being politically activated because of some trauma, whether it's personal or familial or what you witnessed, whatever. What is your thoughts around the changing that aspect of how we get engaged, right? And it being more of, because like the one thing that you mentioned, like when you were growing up, you wanted to be an actress, right? Like, I don't know how many people growing up saying like, I want to be in like public service or a politician or whatever, right? A city leader or state leader, right? And so like, I think personally, that means that there's something fundamentally wrong with the process, right? Because our society, the success of our society, the longevity of our society is solely based on people actually get involved with the civic process. Yet what is uplifted more and like the focus point, the fun activities, is like the actors, the ball players, the musicians, things like that, where it's like, how do we bring the fun into politics and actually bring it to folks in a way, especially at a younger age, that starts to be more of like careers that they can actually go towards, right, and achieve. Like when you're young, right, somebody says that I want to be president one day, it's like, oh, that's cute, right? Like that's the feeling that you get from that. That's such a cute thing. You want to be like, no, that's a real fucking thing. Like, that's a real job. I should be able to, 5 years old, I should actually say I want to do that. But it's not taken seriously. And then as you move through education, it's like, it's not, politics isn't as important, civic engagement as important. And so like, what are your thoughts on like that?
Yeah. So I think as a society, we've failed to uplift civic engagement in the way that we should. And, I've talked to people, older generations, who've said, back in my day, like they taught civics and they taught you, to vote and all these things. And I can't speak to what was or wasn't taught in a different generation, but what I can say is like, I never was taught the importance or the value of any of that. And I was never taught by adults that, these types of positions, not just president, right, but, political people, your state representatives, for example, that those were important and just causes, it's something to aspire to be. And I think part of that, so I think the lack of focus on civic engagement, but then also there's, I think, it feeds into this, I think part of the reason for that is because politicians are seen as like sleazy and like
Corrupt.
liars, corrupt. Right. And, there's something to that sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, and so I think part of that work is going to come down to like rooting out that corruption and uplifting the true civil servants, right? Like uplifting the people who are really upholding, the values of the office and are really trying to make the city and the state and the country a better place.
What's the direction you want to take for the Young Democrats?
I want us to grow an army. That's what I want.
You can't say army now. The conservative movement are going to be like, you're threatening us. They're going to use this clip as a direct threat to their lives. And when they start killing people, I mean, I feel like that's what they do, right? Anyway,
I mean, they do it, but I mean, so what? They're going to do it anyway.
Very true.
That's
Very
true.
true.
They're going to do it anyway.
Already, they don't care what I have to say. A righteous army. But really, though, I mean, that's what I want. I want more people who are volunteering. I want more people who are engaged in the process. I want more young people who are running for office. I want more young people talking to the elected officials, holding them accountable. I want young people to feel like they have a voice and a place in the city, and that they are actively making change in the city. That's what I want.
How can people get involved with Philly Young Dems?
Yes. So come to our website. It's philayoungdems.com. And there's a section of the website where you can click on to be a volunteer. You can also sign up to be a member, even though technically if you live or work in Philadelphia and you're under 40, you're automatically a member. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
And then, like I said, election season, because we're always in election season. May 18th is the primary for Philadelphia. We have judges, we have the district attorney. I notice a lot of folks really paying so much more attention to the judges than the district attorney's race.
Very important.
But not only is it important, I think people are just writing it off as though Krasner is going to
automatically
win.
in there.
And I'm not sold on that 100%. Yeah. But that aside, what are engagement things that you have coming up for Philly Young Democrats as far as the upcoming primary?
Yeah, sure. So we did actually just have a judicial forum last month, so it's funny that you mentioned that. But we're teaming up with a bunch of other organizations, Philly Stat Go, the Asian American Bar Association, LGBT Bar Association, Liberty City, to host a debate between the candidates for district attorney. So that is going to take place on April 19th. It's going to be virtual via Zoom. And so definitely check it out. They will be, invited both to come, and we'll hear from both of them and see what they have to say. We also have our next general meeting is on April 15th. And that one is focused less on the primary, but what we're focusing on that meeting is the judicial gerrymandering bill that might be on the ballot in November, which we can talk more in depth about if you want, or not. That's a whole can of worms. I guess in summary, basically, the Republicans in the state of Pennsylvania are trying to take away your voice and your vote to choose your judicial candidates on the appellate and Supreme Court level.
That's a recurring topic that we've brought up a number of times. We talked about it last week with Jalen, or is it last week at this point? I don't remember how these episodes come out. Every 2 weeks, whatever. Last episode we talked about that with Jalen. So I was about to wrap up, but I just had something that I wanted to mention as it relates to the judicial gerrymandering, which seems to be a new fight that's playing out with the redistricting. And so it seems as though on the state level, so we all took the census last year, right? Which means the following year we go through redistricting, which means that we redraw those maps. So a few years ago, when everybody was pissed off about gerrymandering in Pennsylvania and the Supreme Court struck down the maps that were drawn and, forced new maps to be drawn, that's coming again, in case you didn't know. And so there's this 5 seats. I'm going to truly butcher this explanation of this. There's this 5-seat review of redrawing these maps for the states. that's supposed to be bipartisan. So two Republicans, 2 Democrats, and then one kind of, middle of the road person. And right now there are some folks who, so they have the 4 people picked, and now they're fighting on who that 5th person is. So my understanding is that 5th person has routinely gone unpicked, and the Supreme Court ends up having to pick someone for that. And depending on who that 5th person is whether or not Republicans are going to continue forward with the judicial gerrymandering. So it's like we want to either gerrymander redrawing the whole state for state elected offices, or we want to gerrymander the courts. You pick which one we want.
That's fine.
That seems to be the plan of attack that Republicans are moving towards. Have you heard it? I'm totally dropping this on you. We didn't talk about this before, but this was a conversation that I had with someone who I can't name, literally the day after you and I talked.
I have not. I mean, I don't know. My understanding is that panel was mandated by the Supreme Court to be impaneled, but no, I don't know the dirt about that.
Farah, anything else you want to?
No, I don't think so. I think he was he gave a lot of good information. He told people where to, come and join Philly Young Dems to be a part of it. No, I think it was great.
Anything else that you'd like to share, Sarah, with the folks out there, how folks can join? You send me all the links. We'll make sure it's in the show notes of everything. But anything else you just wanted to spotlight on?
My gratitude for being here. So thank you to both of you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming. We love praise over here, so
really
I appreciate it. Whoop whoop to that. Sarah Hansel, president of Philly Young Dems, judge of elections. See, all these hats that you're wearing. I'm trying to remember it all.
Lawyer
by day, civic engagement, superhero by night.
I love that.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, I know throughout this pandemic, everyone has been saying we're all in this together. Well, here at Salah's Corner, I want to really hear from you and what you're enduring during this pandemic. Give us a call, leave us a voice memo, and we'll play that on our next episode of Salah's Corner. That number is 267-225-5891. Share with me your thoughts, your feelings, things that you're doing to survive during this pandemic, and you'll get your memo featured on the next episode of Salah's Corner. All right, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Sarah Hansel.
Yeah, that was really very.
Philly Young Democrats.
It was a good conversation.
It was, and there was so much more that I wanted to cover. But
it was a lot more that we could have gone into with her and just discussed.
But now it's time for our Whackas of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Farah, you want to take it away?
Sure. So my Whackas of the week this week is the Georgia State Patrol. Why the Georgia State Patrol? Because during the signing of the most regressive voting rights bill signed in history since the Jim Crow era, Representative Cannon Park, she is a Black queer woman, is a rep of Georgia, was arrested for knocking on the door where the governor was signing the bill. Mind you, he was signing the bill in front of a picture of a plantation.
Mm-hmm.
So she was arrested. And she's facing 2 felony charges for felony obstruction and preventing or disrupting General Assembly session. She's a representative who wanted to watch the signing of the bill. She literally knocked on the door. They said she was banging on the door. There's video of it.
Yeah.
You can see it all over the place. She's just knocked on the door, and they arrested her. So Georgia State Patrol gets Whackas of the week for me.
That's interesting, actually, and it actually made me think of my Whackas. So my Whackas of the week is none other than Georgia Governor Brian Kemp for even signing and privately pushing this legislation to the forefront behind closed doors. So this essentially is a very, very much rolls back voting rights in the state of Georgia, where you can't even give people in line water as they're trying to vote. So Brian Kemp gets my Whackas of the week for regressive.
And everyone's a winner in Whackas of the week. Don't get it twisted. Everyone's a winner.
All right, vote for Whackas of the Week and my IG. Thank you as always for listening in. Please
Yes,
email me
thank you.
your feedback at realtalk@salazcorner.com.
I guess y'all can email me y'all feedback. I don't get them, but if you want to, you can email me.
give me your email. I'll put it in there.
Okay.
All right, cool. All right. Salaz Corner is recorded out of Rec Philly. It's a space for creative individuals. It's produced by the great Raina. Producer the great. I'm gonna go with that one this week. Producer the great Raina.
That sounds good.
And with my co-host, my lovely sister Farah.
Hair flip.
Until next time. Peace
Bye,
out.
guys.